Missouri landed the most coveted quarterback transfer of 2019, but can they live up to the high expectations? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Barry Odom is entering his fourth year with Missouri, and he is continuously building up this Tigers program. In 2016, he won just 4 games, but in 2017, he won 7. 2018, he won 8. And in 2019, many people are projecting the Tigers to win 9, maybe even 10 games. And most of that is thanks to the addition of transfer quarterback Kelly Bryant, the biggest transfer of this past offseason, coming over from Clemson. Bryant will arguably be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC right off the bat, mostly because of the job that he did at Clemson, leading the Tigers to a college football playoff appearance, and he has a lot of help surrounding him on this Missouri offense. He has his running back in Larry Rountree, who rushed for over 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns last season. And then he has a phenomenal crew of wide receivers, getting Jonathan Johnson, Jalen Knox, Jonathan Nance, the transfer wide receiver from Arkansas, and arguably the best tight end in the SEC, and Albert Bunam. I'm assuming I can pronounce that correctly. That's a horrible name to try to pronounce, but nonetheless will be one of the best tight ends in the entire SEC. Defensively, you would think that would be a strength for Missouri because Barry Odom was promoted a few years ago from defensive coordinator to head coach. But they haven't lived up to those expectations in recent years. Last year, they allowed 25.5 points per game, which was their best mark since 2015, when they allowed just 16.2 points per game. But they returned 6 starters, including 3 of their top 5 tacklers, including their leading tackler and Cale Garrett at linebacker. So I expect this Missouri team to be much improved in 2019 and seriously contend in the SEC East. But the question will be, can they get to a bowl game now they have that bowl ban placed on them due to academic fraud? They're in the appeals process right now, and I believe it should get overturned. Missouri should be able to go bowling. If they don't, that's just another reason why the NCAA is corrupt and wrong. But besides that, Barry Odom has to keep his team focused on the task at hand and not worry about that bowl appeal. And right now, they have to focus on that season opening game against Wyoming, which we have down as an automatic win for the Tigers. I think they go on the road, take care of the Cowboys, who are not what they used to be like they were a few years ago under Josh Allen. Will still be borderline bowl eligible in 2019, but a pretty decent way for Kelly Bryant and this squad to get things rolling in 2019. They then come back home to face off against West Virginia, a quality Power 5 opponent out of the Big 12. But the Mountaineers are going through some major changes. They bring in Neil Brown from Troy as their brand new head coach. They lose Will Greer at quarterback. They lose David Sills and their top 4 wide receivers. And they lose 3 of their top 6 tacklers on defense from last season and have a lot of people that have entered their name into the transfer portal. So Neil Brown has his hands full in 2019. West Virginia not going to be the Big 12 title contenders like they were last year, and I think they struggle mightily this season. At least over the course of the season, no doubt, but mightily in this game as well against the Tigers. I think Missouri's offense lights up this West Virginia defense, and the offense for the Mountaineers that will be led by Austin Kendall, the Oklahoma transfer, is just not going to be able to get anything going this early on in the season against an improved Missouri defense, and the Tigers get the win over West Virginia. They beat Southeast Missouri, no problem. They're 3-0, facing off against South Carolina to open up SEC play. And over the past 4 seasons, Missouri has opened the SEC play 0-1. They have also dropped 3 straight home openers in SEC play. So something has got to give here for the Tigers, you at least would think. But this South Carolina team is one of the best that Will Muschamp has had. You just might not see that because they have the most difficult schedule in the entire nation. Nonetheless, I expect a great quarterback battle between Jake Bentley and Kelly Bryant, but home field advantage for Missouri, assuming we can get some good weather. Last year's game, a torrential downpour, South Carolina winning 37-35. Assuming we have better weather this year, Missouri should take care of business against the Gamecocks. I expect them to win this game by about a touchdown. Kelly Bryant exploits weaknesses in Will Muschamp's defense, and Missouri gets a late stop against this much improved South Carolina offense. Missouri kicks off the season 4-0 and finally starts off SEC play 1-0. They get a bye week going into that Troy game, who in the Troy will still be a contender in the Sun Belt, but not enough to come on the road and beat this SEC opponent, especially coming off a bye. Missouri 5-0. They then get a home game against Ole Miss, and if you look at Missouri's schedule, they could not have asked for a better cross-division slate, facing off against Ole Miss and Arkansas, arguably the two worst teams out of the SEC Western Division. And we'll start here with Ole Miss, talk about Arkansas later. The Rebels bring in a brand new quarterback themselves. They lose Jordan Teamu, and now they're going to have to deal with Matt Corral, the redshirt freshman. So a lot to be learned there. And he's going to have to build some chemistry with his wide receivers fairly quickly because he loses DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. So Ole Miss, being known for their offense in years past, may struggle a little early on this season as they're trying to work new things out. But Matt Luke did a phenomenal job bringing in Rich Rodriguez as offensive coordinator and Mike McIntyre as defensive coordinator. And those 10 defensive starters that return for Ole Miss on defense will certainly help Mike McIntyre across the board, because I expect both those guys to make an immediate impact in Oxford. But it's not going to be enough to come on the road and beat Missouri. I think the defense has a field day against this Ole Miss offense, who I think will sputter at times. And I think Kelly Bryant and his offense, especially the ground game in this one, exploits this Ole Miss defense. I will be shocked if Missouri wins this game by less than 14 points. The Tigers beat the Rebels, and they are now 6-0 and bowl eligible, assuming they can get there. They then go on the road to face off against Vanderbilt. And I'm going to say this is a major trap game for the Tigers. They cannot afford to overlook the Commodores in this one. Last year, they only won 33-28. Now, I get that last year that was a better Vanderbilt team. They still had Kyle Shermer. They had Keyshawn Vaughn, who's going to be one of the most dangerous running backs to stop in the SEC. Averaged almost 8 yards per carry last season. And they have a phenomenal crew of wide receivers as well. So this will be a game that I think Missouri's defense will certainly get tested. The question is, how quickly will Riley Neal, the transfer quarterback from Ball State, gel with these wide receivers at Vanderbilt? How quickly can he take command of this offense? If he does better than some expect, Vanderbilt could go bowling in 2019. But if he struggles, because the SEC is so much more different than the MAC, then Vanderbilt will probably struggle as well. I think Missouri gets a road win against Vanderbilt, but do not be surprised if this game is closer than some expect. But I do think they get the win over Derek Mason and the Commodores. They are now 7-0. So right now, assuming Missouri's bowl ban gets lifted, you're looking at the Tigers not only being an SEC title contender, but maybe even a college football playoff contender. This team could very well be ranked in the top 15 or top 10 going into October 26th at Kentucky. So Missouri, absolutely the real deal entering 2019. But this game at Kentucky, though, could spell problems for the Tigers. Last year in Columbia, they lost 15-14 to the Wildcats, and I know that was a very, very controversial finish. They also shut down Benny Snell, holding the Kentucky rushing game to just 91 yards. But they did allow 294 passing yards from Terry Wilson. That was one of his better performances of all of 2018. Well, Kentucky this season loses Benny Snell, so you can guarantee they'll be relying a little bit more on that passing game. And I expect Terry Wilson in his second year as starter for the Wildcats to take a major leap forward in the passing game. This game in Lexington, Kentucky's 10-win season last year was not a fluke. People that say they're not going to go bowling do not know what they're talking about. Kentucky will still be a tough out for any team in the SEC. Missouri will be one of them. The Tigers fall at Lexington behind a dominant passing attack from Terry Wilson and a defense that I know lost a lot, but steps it up and shuts down Kelly Bryant in this game. Kentucky gets the win. Missouri takes their first loss of 2019. They then get a bye week on November 2nd, and I've said it over and over again that I think that's the most ideal bye week for any team, getting that right at the beginning of November, entering the most crazy month and most crucial month of college football. They go on the road against Georgia, so you couldn't have asked for a better bye week to get that bye week going into a game against the Bulldogs that could decide the SEC East. If our predictions hold, this game against Georgia could hold that because Georgia has a tough schedule themselves against teams like Florida and Auburn and the likes of those teams. So you have to watch out for this game. But it's on the road in Athens. And that's where it's going to catch the Tigers. If this game was in Columbia, I would lean a little towards Missouri's way, maybe as that trendy upset pick. But it is in Athens. I like that they get a week of rest there. Georgia's going to be coming off a game against Florida, so you have to watch out for that. Maybe if they fall in that game, they catch them a little down on themselves. But they still boast one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and Jake Fromm. They still have DeAndre Swift at running back, and their defense will still be extremely elite under Kirby Smart. The only thing that Georgia has to worry about is building up those new wide receivers because they lose their top 5 from 2018. But nonetheless, I think the Bulldogs get the job done against Missouri. Expect this game to be close for the majority of the game. Georgia pulls away late. Missouri takes their second loss of the season, but also their second in a row. They then host Florida, and this is another crucial game for the Tigers. Last year, they shocked the nation, upsetting number 13 Florida 38-17 in the Swamp. So that's something to keep in mind. They annihilated Florida last year on the road. But not to take anything away from Missouri, but that game that Florida lost against Missouri last year was coming right after their loss to Georgia, a 36-17 loss to their rival in the Bulldogs. I don't know if they had anything to play with it, but that is an interesting fact to keep in mind. This year, Missouri is going to be coming off a loss to Georgia, and I think they fall to Florida at home. I know a lot of people may disagree with that. How could they beat Florida in the Swamp last year, come back home, and fall to them this year? But I think Felipe Franks takes a major step forward in year 2 under Dan Mullen's system, and I think that defense can easily be one of the best in the entire SEC. I think Florida comes on the road, revenge on their mind, still in contention for the SEC title hunt, SEC East crown, and they beat Missouri, handing them their third straight loss. And I know for a lot of people that sounds ridiculous to see 3 straight losses from the Tigers. But this stretch from October 26th to the end, especially this 4-game stretch here in November, is going to be crucial for Missouri. They then get Tennessee and Arkansas, 2 teams that they can't afford to overlook because these are 2 teams that are going to improve drastically in 2019. And we'll start with the Volunteers. Missouri has won the past 2 against Tennessee 50-17. They won 50-17 last year and 50-17 in 2017. Over the past 3 seasons, they have rushed for 1,080 yards against the Volunteers. So the Volunteers' rushing defense, absolutely atrocious against the Tigers the past few years. And that spells great news for Larry Rountree and Kelly Bryant as a dual-threat quarterback in this game. Tennessee is going to take a major step forward in year 2 under Jeremy Pruitt, but not enough to come on the road and beat the Tigers in Columbia. Missouri snaps that 3-game losing streak and beats the Volunteers. They then face off against Arkansas and Little Rock, going to Little Rock for this game against the Razorbacks. They have won, Missouri, 4 of the past 5 meetings against Arkansas. They've won 4 of the past 5 since these 2 teams started meeting in the SEC. 3 games out of the past 5, though, have been decided by just 1 possession, including the last time Missouri traveled to Arkansas when they won 48-45 on a game-winning field goal. But last year they beat the Razorbacks 38-0, shut them out. A dominant defensive performance from the Tigers. They won't shut them out this year. I expect this game to be very similar to the ones we've seen in years past. 21-14 in 2014, 28-24 back in 2016, or maybe even 48-45 like we saw back in 2017. This game will be closer because Chad Morris's squad, especially offensively, will improve drastically in 2019, especially with the addition of Ben Hicks and Nick Starkel at quarterback. But Arkansas isn't quite there yet. I expect them to take their biggest step forward in year 3 under Chad Morris. I think they fall to Missouri in another close one, another kind of trap game from Missouri here, but the Tigers get the win over the Razorbacks, and they finish the season 9-3. So after 7 wins in 2017, 8 wins in 2018, we see 9 wins for the Tigers in 2019, and a chance at 10 wins if they can win their bowl game, assuming they can even make one. And for you Tiger fans out there, I want you in a bowl game. 9-3 could very well get them into a NY6 Bowl game, depending on how the rest of the SEC fares. But nonetheless, the Tigers are the real deal in 2019. The addition of Kelly Bryant is going to be huge for this offense, and I think Barry Odom has his best team yet and has his best season yet since taking over as head coach in Columbia. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.